Good morning. Can they hear me?
Yeah. Morning, Mike.
Good morning.
We've got Ann here this morning. We've got Glenn. We're waiting on Dave and Dan, but maybe we can start a few things. We got some changes to the agenda this morning. Mike Hall has asked if he could come on a little early because he has to chair one of his state association meetings this morning. And so I told him we would try to move him up here a little earlier in the meeting. Also, Arel Lamaro has asked to have a few minutes toward the end of the meeting to, I believe, bring us up to date on the electrical problem at the main courthouse. Those are the only changes to the agenda. Are there any other changes that any of you have? Katrina, do we have any public comment this morning?
No.
No public comment. Chair's report is basic. I guess I'll cover the things I want to when I get down to transportation. Say a couple things that happened at the ITCTC meeting. Lisa's here. Lisa, do you want to talk to us?
Sure.
Good morning.
Just have good morning. A couple of quick updates. Been working with departments, many of the F&I departments on the capital plan, capital budget, together with Rick and Kevin, and trying to put that together. I am going to be, coming back to the legislature, and I know we're going to be discussing the use of ARP funds at the June 30th meeting. It will be critical to try to pin down the capital budget as it relates to the overall budget and what sources of funding we're going to be using for these capital projects. So I just want to make everyone aware of that. And other than that, we have some exciting events this week celebrating Juneteenth for the workforce. Together with the city of Ithaca, we've collaborated on a number of events. There's the second of a two-part documentary today, Civil Warriors, an employee lunch tomorrow, experiencing the African diaspora through cuisine, and a play and dramatic reading on Friday evening. So excited to be bringing these events and celebrating with the county workforce. I think that's it for me.
Questions for Lisa? Lisa, I'm wondering about trying to go to the maybe the hybrid meeting model that we've been talking about. And chair of this committee, I'm all in favor of that. I will leave it to the rest of the committee if how they feel about it as well. But I would think that once we could do that, maybe we can return to chambers as a group, unless someone wants to join us by Zoom. And I know they've done a little modification in here already. I see a shield up at the podium. So I don't know if that's a question or a comment, but I thought I would say that this morning.
Yes, and to that point, Mike, I just got off the morning call with elected officials, and that is the topic of the day, I would say, among our villages and towns about moving to a hybrid or back to in-person meetings, and exactly how to do that, when to do that, and looking at the executive orders coming out from New York State around reopening and how that applies to open meetings. So I think it's certainly something on everyone's mind and something that we need to be thinking about and planning on moving toward.
That's good. I want to note that both Dave McKenna and Dan Klein have joined us. Mike Hall, I'm going to move you up to this point.
Good morning. The airport has three
We
resolutions.
can't. There you go. Now we can see you.
The airport has three resolutions this morning for consideration. The
Can
first,
everyone hear him? You're a little. I can hear you, but just barely.
okay, I'll speak really loudly. Does that
That's
help?
better. That's better.
Okay. So we have three resolutions this morning. The first involves an extension of engineering services at the airport. We worked to get this RFP out, and a selection for engineering services needs to be made by the end of June, and the timeline just didn't come together. So we're asking for a 6-month extension. We have to have a service providing engineer in place because of all the grant documentation and what have you. So that's resolution number one, subject to any questions you may have.
All right, let's see if someone wants to put that on the table. Dan Klein just moved it. Is there a second? And Koreman has seconded it. All right, questions about this? Mike, this is every 5 years we do this project review for engineering services. Am I right?
It's something like 3 to 5 years, yes, depending on your
I remember sitting there reading all the RFPs in the previous renditions of this before. So this would just give another 6 months before we had to start that, right?
Well, we're going to be starting it a lot sooner than 6 months because we need to make a decision by 6 months. But the timeline was one of those casualties, getting to the point of having a new services company named by the end of June.
Okay, ready to vote?
Ann has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ann, didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Well, that was a question for Lisa, but I can ask after we go the airport stuff if Lisa's going to be here.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding you. You want to ask Mike a question? You want to ask Lisa a question? What?
I had my hand up before to ask Lisa a question.
Oh, okay, let's vote on this. I'll come back up and catch you. I apologize for not seeing your hand.
No worries.
Let's vote on the resolution. Let's go with Dave.
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
and I'm yes. Let's let Ann ask her question if we could, please.
Oh, thank you. Let's see. My question, I don't know if you'll be here, Lisa, when Arel is going to be here later in the meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll be here.
And you'll be here too, Lisa. Okay, I'll ask it then because it had to do with our buildings. Thank you.
Sure. Mhm.
Okay, Mike, sorry that I forced that interruption. Go ahead.
No problem. The second resolution is accepting the Carissa grant from the federal government to the airport. We're going to have a further discussion of this item later with Lisa because she questioned whether or not the resolution should include a destination for the funds. That's not traditionally the way we've done it at the airport. Finance makes that determination. Later on, we've always had a 2-step process here. But Lisa and I will be going over that later today to determine, if we want to continue this habit going forward or whether we want to change future resolutions to indicate where the funds are going to be deposited, so to speak. Did I get that right, Lisa?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So Lisa, are you all right with us going ahead with this at this point?
Sure. I've had the recent experience where we accepted some grant funds and there in a different situation, not with the airport, where there was not a destination for the funds, and we went a long time. We missed it. So I just wanted to make sure we cover our steps, that's all.
Other questions? Ready to vote?
We didn't get motions.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put it on the table yet. Someone move it, please. Dan? Dan, your hand's still up. Is that a second or no, I'll take Dave. Dave seconded out loud here. All right, let's go ahead and vote. Dan?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Third involves approval of a finance audit of construction that was done at the airport.
Someone want to move that one? Dan
Yeah,
again?
I'll move it.
We'll let Dave move it. Dan seconds. Punch list is all done, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Ready to vote, folks?
Sure. Yes.
How about Dave first?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay. What else, Mike?
Well, we're in the process of early stage awareness of pulling together a proposal. The governor has committed another $250 million to upstate airport development, half of which is funded. And Ithaca was identified as one of the target airports. We need to determine coming out of COVID with changes that have taken place, over the last couple of years, exactly what our next move might be to put a proposal in. And we'll be briefing you about that after we've had appropriate discussions. The two future themes that the state's interested in here at Ithaca were identified as we worked through the first upstate airport development grant. And those themes were solar powered airport of the future and multimode transportation. And there's interest in both those counts. I guess the one thing we know for sure is the DMV pad. Mike, I'll let you know that, but there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of discussion that needs to take place otherwise about who's ready to do what when. The proposal's due in September. And of course, there's a lot of turbulence in Albany, so it's not clear, how quickly it might be acted on or not. So, but that's a July or August discussion once we've had a chance to pile all the chips on the table and sort them out and figure out what's in and what's out and justify it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're on top of this one because it might be an opportunity to get some money that we might normally not be able to have available to us.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. And we want to put a good proposal forward. We got a little bit short at the first time around. We got 14.2 and the state then spent over 20 on their DOT facility, which was great to get that constructed and off the waterfront. But you could make an argument that, we're due a second tranche here. And if we have good justification with the connections we have, I think that we're going to be very competitive. Let's put it that way.
You had I know for the original airport grant, you had a nice group put together that helped with the writing of that grant. Are we going to have anything like that this time?
Yeah, Gene McFeeters and I are taking one more lap here, and plus
That's great because she was a big part of it.
Next Monday, the Air Services Board, a very diverse group, is going to consider, what the future of the airport might look like. So we're doing a lot of collaborative work here to get consensus about a vision and then the steps that are necessary to enact that vision.
Mike, I had one other question. I noticed they announced that Southwest was going into to service Syracuse Airport. And I know they've been in Rochester and we were the secondary airport for them in an emergency. Is that going to be similar with Onondaga, or hasn't that been decided yet?
Now, we're still the upstate alternate for Southwest if they can't get into their primary location. But we haven't taken any diverts, in recent time. I think the Southwest service in Syracuse could play either way. First of all, they're a great airline. They're going to Baltimore and they've got great domestic connections and a few international connections. That might help ticket prices here from our competing airlines. We'll just have to see how this all plays out, going forward. That's a lot of seats in the market. That's 450 plus seats a day up there for Southwest added on to the service that Syracuse already has.
Mike or Lisa, sorry I couldn't make the event for the United Airlines the other day. Do you want to report anything about that?
Well, United is back. They're flying 2 planes a day. Right now, it goes up to 3 or 4 at the end of the summer. That service connects us back to Washington Dulles, which is both an important destination, a lot of federal support for research programs and what have you. So it's right at the top of Cornell's list of destinations. And it also provides great international connections. So right now we are at 250 seats in market a day. By the end of the summer, we should be at 450, which is where we were before the pandemic, knocked the wheels off or wings off. And so the recovery is coming along nicely. Our challenge at the airport is trying to, herd all the collateral services back, food, rental cars, what have you, so that, we've got a complete package. And that's a big challenge coming out of, the various industries that have been impacted and the businesses that have been impacted during COVID. But that's our primary focus right now. The airlines are on track. We now need to build the rest of the package around them.
Lisa, did you want to add anything or not?
Only to say it was a nice and celebratory event at the airport, and I think that it was a recognition of all of the airlines for the service that they continue to provide during the pandemic, and a nice welcoming of United for reopening.
Okay, anything else? Mike, thank you, and we'll let you go for your meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate the consideration this morning.
Let's go to Department of Recycling and Materials Management, Barbara Extra. And I guess Leo's here. Leo Riley's here as well.
So I've got Leo here today because he's our owner's rep on the construction that's taking place at the recycling center. Leo, why don't you quickly explain what's different about this construction versus normal county construction, because we aren't, with our engineer, overseeing the actual construction. We're just, quality assurance on this project, like we've been for the last few procurements on the recycling center.
Barton & LaJudas is overseeing the construction project. The general contractor is Casella. So they contract with their contractors to complete the work. The work consists of 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2, and that's how Arel is issuing the building permits. The bulk of the work was really in phase 1 as far as the cost goes. Phase 1 is completed. The application that we're submitting for payment today is for the compactor itself, and that piece of equipment is upwards of like $250,000 for the compactor and the installation of the compactor. What we have left in phase 2 is kind of like a number of different projects. We've got an old leachate tank that we're removing. We have a trench drain that's being replaced. We have 2 overhead doors being replaced, and some other incidental repairs to sections of the floor and drop-off areas. We expect to be starting that phase 2 soon, I would say, within the next week or 2. The compactor itself, just to give you an idea what this piece of equipment does, it's very large. You know, I hope, you know, some of you folks set up, you know, for a little tour once this.
Yeah, I think when we're done with construction, we'll tour everybody, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive piece of equipment. Well, what this compactor does is it accepts the loose single stream material that's collected from curbside. And then, you know, kind of picture a large funnel, if you will, where it's loaded into and then funnels down into what we refer to as a charge box. That's the compactor portion of it, where this compactor attaches to a 53-foot trailer. And the charge box just continues to push single stream material into it. We'll obtain larger loads, and we'll be cutting down on the number of trips that we take to Ontario County with it. So that it helped us with some savings, if we can say we've seen some savings. So.
Question?
Did I leave anything out, Barb?
I'm sorry?
Did I leave anything out, Barb?
I just had one thing to mention, and that is all of this was approved when we approved the contract for both construction and operations with Casella. And we're doing some final work to make sure that phase 2 comes within the budget. It was higher, and we've been working on reducing that. So that's what we're planning to do in the next few days before we get going with phase 2.
Barbara, one of our goals for the committee is to review that contract at some point this year as far as where we stand with it. And so, you know, maybe in the fall or
Well, you'll be doing
next
that.
year, we'd like to hear how
Okay.
we've done with it.
You mean the construction itself?
Well, and the new operation.
Oh, okay, yeah. We will also be talking to you about it at budget time as well.
That's good.
Very good.
Barbara, is there have we gotten any money for things like solid waste and recycling from the stimulus packages?
Well, I mean, I did express interest, just, you know, to bring to your attention. I did speak with Lisa Holmes, who's right here, about the idea that we would also be included in that infrastructure funding, because the truth of the matter is we are going to have to borrow for at least next year, but then I'm hoping that we can actually get some more money. Let's remember that this facility is getting old. And I mean, yes, you know, there are things we have to do in the next couple of years, but truthfully, within, you know, when we're looking at the next contract or whether we do it ourselves, there's going to be some serious decision making as to whether we continue operations, which I'm assuming we will, and what that investment's going to be.
Well, that's a good caution.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Ann has her hand up.
And Anna, your hand, I don't know why. I think it's because it's behind that cloud in your background that I don't see that as well, but Dan just pointed it out to me. Sorry, go ahead, Ann, please.
Are you not able to see the participant?
No, now I can see it. Now that I look for it.
Okay, thank you. So I was gonna ask about a tour, so you beat me to that because, I've had only a couple of constituents, complain about the rise in prices. So I think having a tour will help me, be able to see the things firsthand and.
Yeah, that's, sounds good. I think we should tie that right into Mike's request, which is we can have a tour arranged as part of the committee understanding how things are going with the operations and the construction.
Okay, and I was just wondering, if we could talk to Dominic Recchio, our PR person. Again, I don't want to put pressure. I know he has a lot of things going on, but if, for instance, if he could follow us on the tour or come with us on the tour, then we could help put out some more information. I know you're putting out.
Yeah, we
information.
also have Jeremy, who's our communications coordinator.
Oh, right.
He works well with Dominic. So what I would
Okay.
suggest is that we have Dominic, I'll make mention to Jeremy, and Jeremy and Dominic can work on organizing something together. So it's not just Dominic's responsibility. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me. I'll defer to Mike and Lisa, but yeah, I just think getting more information now can't hurt, because what people are,
Yeah.
at least when they're talking to me, they're just saying, "Oh, I just see my prices going up." So I don't think it can hurt, and then I can answer their questions a lot.
Yeah. There's been changes, and I think it's all healthy. I'm looking at the calendar, and I believe that in September, is your committee meeting on the 16th of September? Because it might be good to set a tentative date.
Yes.
Dan says yes, that's the right date.
Okay, I can talk to Lisa more about this and we can move forward.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, we've got the information item, the capital payment summary. Are there any questions on that this morning? Not seeing any. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Have a good month.
Same to you. Thank you, Leo.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, we're buzzing right along this morning. Let's go to our highway department. Jeff Smith is excused, but we're pleased to have John here this morning. John Weibert.
Morning, everyone. The item we have on the agenda today is a resolution accepting or creating a budget adjustment. Can you all
All of a
hear
sudden,
me?
we can't see you, John.
I see
Hey,
me.
we can't see you.
I see John.
That's him.
We
Really?
don't.
I can't see the
John's
legislative
letter hand
building either.
anymore. Maybe
Pardon
it's
me?
must be from there's Glenn back. Okay, John.
I'm having the same issues. It might be something to do with the county's internet connectivity.
All right, well, let's just proceed then, John. Go ahead. We can hear you all right.
Okay, all right. This resolution would adjust the budget to accommodate the additional Consolidated Highway Improvement Program CHIPS funding that we received. Basically, this would, each year, the state kind of holds out the extreme winter recovery money and paving New York money. They don't always have a guaranteed base amount. So the legislature passed some additional funding in there, as well as a percentage. I think it was 20% that they reduced last year's CHIPS funding in light of the COVID situation and so forth. So this would adjust our budget, our maintenance budget, highway and materials budget amount, in the amount of $1.684393.
Someone want to put that on the table?
I'll move it.
I'll second
Dave?
it.
Ann has seconded it. All right, questions? Dan?
So the wording says 15% of the 20%. And what I think that means is there was a 20% cut originally, and then it was changed to only be a 5% cut. Does that sound accurate? It's not, I'll stop there for a minute.
Well, Jeff has been handling this, so he would have the better idea, but I think that they cut back 20%, and as you point out, they probably gave us 15% back.
So
Like-
I'm asking it, it's not a huge deal, but the way it's worded really says that 15% of the 20%, that's not really accurate. Really, it's a 75% restoration. Does that sound right to anyone that can? I know, John, you're saying this, you didn't handle this directly.
I did not, but I think that if they held back 20%, they're giving us that 15%. They're holding, now they would be holding 5% of the total amount.
Right. Okay. Well, if that's right, I had some suggested word change, which would be take out 15% of the 20% and change it to for restoration of 75% of the previous year's cut.
Is that a motion?
Well,
Is that, John, I realize that Jeff's been working on this, as you say. Can we go ahead and maybe look at Dan's changes, and then if it's not okay, we can fix it again at when it comes to the floor of the legislature?
Yes, absolutely. I will be in contact with him. He will be back on Monday as well. And this is, as you point out, is just a wording change, and I can make those changes and have that circle back around.
appreciate that, Mike. Or we could do it the other way. We could pass it as is, and you could take this info back to Jeff and see what he thinks. I mean,
Well, Dan, you've got the floor. Which way would you like to go?
I guess, even though I just said that, yeah, since we can't confirm that what I'm saying is true, let's leave it as it is. And John, do you understand my question enough to take it back to Jeff? I didn't word it very
Yes,
well.
absolutely. That
Okay.
if they are withholding money, they are only holding 5% of last year's amount.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's the end result, correct?
Yeah, because 15% of 20% is like a
It's
very
not
different
very
number.
much.
Math, yeah.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Then yeah, it's not a motion.
Are the others okay with that?
That's what I think Dan's correct. That's what I believe that Jeff had said before. But I do like that we'll change the wording.
Okay, so we'll get a better answer on that if once John and Jeff can talk. Shall we go ahead and vote?
Hey, Mike, just one thing. I think we should keep the wording about the 20% in there some way. So that we're basically stating what happened originally.
I see Dan nodding, and I think that makes sense.
Okay.
All right, so maybe we can ask, we could get that whereas reworded after John and Jeff talk.
Yes, I can make that clearer.
Yes,
That's a word.
that is a word.
All right, let's vote. Dave,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, and then we've got a capital payment summary for the Etna Lane Bridge replacement. Any questions on that? Okay, John, are there any other items you'd like to bring to our attention?
I believe I don't know where Jeff has left off on some of our Bridge New York projects. For instance, Central Chapel Road Bridge. Construction should start in August. There was a delay on the precast, but everything is in place. Etna Lane, the design is wrapping up. We're very close to getting that bid. I think that there's a couple of little right-of-way issues that need to be approved. I think it's all in order. It's just a process, and the process takes some time. We hope to get that at this stage of the game, probably bid a little bit later in the year to take advantage of pricing towards the end of the year. But given some other projects out and around, I think it would be in our best interest to bid it sooner than later. The 34 bridge being an example. Also, we have a project, highway safety improvement project that is going on kind of at the intersection of Pine Tree Road and Ellis Hollow Road. And I received some information yesterday that says we are ready to bid or approved to bid. Just a matter of now going through purchasing and getting it out on the street for a month. Other than that, I believe the highway crews are moving along with their chip sealing. I think most of that first phase is done and working on paving as well.
John, the Etna Lane Bridge funding came up at the ITCTC meeting for amending the TIP. Did you want to mention anything on that?
I certainly can. I think that you may, I don't recall, Mike, if you were at the previous meeting, probably not. The engineer's estimate on the project was about $400,000 more than the TIP amount. The Bridge New York funding is fixed at whatever that number happens to be. And DOT is maintaining that Federal Highway will not give us construction obligation, a letter to that effect, without having significant or substantial, basically the budget in place on the TIP. So the TIP adjusted that amount. We were trying to, I don't want to say skip that phase. We weren't, but this is all based on estimates. And frankly, I was a little reluctant to come to you and say, would you adjust the budget, and then have to come back and say, would you adjust the budget again once we knew what the bids were. So that's really what that TIP adjustment or amendment was about. Hope that's clear.
But apparently they don't want us to skip that, even though it means delaying things by a month or so for our projects. Is that what they said the other day?
Well, I think that's part of it. I think that's a DOT perspective, but the city of Ithaca is going through the same process, and I think most municipalities are going through that. Well, this is really essentially a paper chase. Right. We would keep the legislature and as well as the committee informed of where we are on that information, but we really don't have any information until the project's bid.
But the policy committee did approve an adjustment to the amendment to the TIP of $433,000.
That is correct.
For that.
That is correct.
So that means that once the project is put in for funding, because that would have to be added to the local share,
yes.
Then they would go ahead and approve the construction. Is that correct? At the DOT level? At the
DOT level, now that it is on the TIP, once all the other paperwork is in, as I mentioned earlier, the right of way and all of those little obstacles are out of the way, then they can issue an obligation of funds for construction. The Bridge New York project, as I say, is capped, and anything over that amount would be a local share. At which time, once we knew what that local share was necessarily going to be, if indeed it comes in over budget, then we can bring that to you.
I want folks to know about that. John, you were at that meeting. I hope I didn't put you on the spot, but I thought it was important that the committee know about it.
No, not at all. We try to keep everybody informed, but I'm reluctant to keep changing the numbers.
Yeah.
You know, that's essentially what it is. And as we will discuss in, you know, probably a little bit later, these numbers jump all over the place and they're very high lately.
Dave?
Yeah, that's basically my question. I was wondering what kind of cost overrun percentages are we seeing?
I don't know that there is necessarily a percentage that I could give you because it varies depending on what the structure is.
Okay.
Anything else for John this morning? John, thank you for being here. We
Yes, sir.
appreciate your report.
Absolutely.
See, Arel's joined us. Morning, Arel. I think he's joined us. Arel, are you there? Well, I guess not. Maybe he's having some of the same trouble, but I'm seeing faces again. That's a good thing. Transportation. Began talk about reimbursement to towns for Bridge New York programs. And I asked for input from not only the department, but from legislators. We got a draft initially from Jeff Smith about the Bridge New York program. I received an email from Martha Robertson, who couldn't join us this morning. And I believe everyone got copies of that. I think we got that yesterday. But that's really the only input that I've had at this point. And I did call Jeff and talk with him about his proposal. My concern being that the way I read it was that he hoped that we could just continue to do the normal kind of negotiations that we do with each bridge on a town road. John, correct me if I'm wrong, but that if there were things that were outside the scope of things that are normally done by the department, that they would negotiate that into the individual contract. My concern was at some point, I know Dan had raised the issue, where does the committee or the legislature okay the contract? Apparently in the past, the fairly normal town bridges, county bridges on town roads have been gone just to the administrator. But this is a little different. And so that's, I'll throw that out there for discussion. I don't think we're going to come to any conclusions today, but I wanted folks to know about what's happened since the last meeting. And do any of you have any additional thoughts ever? I'm sure it's been right at the top of your agenda for the last month to think about here, but we're glad to take any comments. Dan has his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of hinted at there. I just wanted to state it in a policy pretty clearly that this is not automatic. The county has to approve the agreement, the bridge, the design, the whole agreement. It's, as simple as that. Like, I just want that stated clearly.
Ann?
Thank you. I would like something in writing, but I do think that part of what happened was because there wasn't an agreement for that bridge, and I don't think we need to go into why that happened for the Freeze Road Bridge, but I possibly something, maybe brought up at TCOG or something. I think they'll be meeting soon just to, so that they have reassurance, because I know this has been brought up in my district. It's kind of, I don't know how to say this, but it's kind of stirred things up, and it just kind of has now created some concern. So I'd like to somehow figure out how to reassure people in the municipalities.
Well, I think that's a good point. And I will again point to the George Road Bridge, which had no problem at all with the reimbursement.
Mike,
John? Oh, I'm sorry, who spoke?
Glenn did.
Glenn.
Martha Rose raised the question of recommendation. If it's determined by the county highway representatives, the overage of cost, and she wanted to know the definition of cost.
I don't know if there is a definition. It's over the 20% normally that we would have done. I guess John maybe can answer that better than I can. Go ahead, John.
Like an onion, there's a lot of layers in this, aren't there? Essentially, and a separation needs to be made between Bridge New York projects and the normal capital improvement projects. It's similar, but not the same. So the Bridge New York projects, a local municipality, be that a town or the county, would pay 5% of the, excuse me. You don't want to listen to that. Would the Bridge New York project, you're responsible for 5% of the total project costs up to the budget. Anything over the budget is 100% on the municipality. So this overage that we're talking about, for instance, excuse me, you have $1 million project, and because steel prices, excuse me, have skyrocketed, perhaps that portion went over budget by $10,000. Hey, that's a market thing. I think that would be something that we as the highway department would recommend accepting. The difference would then be if you were going to get a bridge to go from here to there, and it costs $1 million, but the municipality chose to put in an arch bridge, a spandrel bridge, something fancy. That's really not necessarily in the realm of a recommendation that we would make, and those particular things that are decided upon by the municipality, to me anyway, my opinion, should be on the municipality, but I'm not making the decisions. I think the other thing that she had in here were the culvert projects, and we can come back if you have questions on the bridge. The culvert projects are 100% funded by the state. So if they stay within the budget, then that would be would be paid for by the state. I think any overages would be on the municipality because they're town roads.
And I'll get you just a second, but my understanding is the culvert projects that the towns are being funded for are on town roads. And since we don't participate in culverts on town roads, that would all be a responsibility of the town to pay.
Correct.
Ann? I'm sorry, Ann, we lost you all of a sudden. I apologize. Oh,
That
no,
was my
there you are.
hand
Your
up from
picture came
before.
up. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Ann, did you have a question?
No, that was my hand up from before.
Oh,
Thank you.
gotcha. Okay. All right, anything else on this? I think we're gonna work a little bit on the draft and hopefully have something that we can react solidly to next time. Anyone else wants to put in any comments, please do so. All right, is Rel with us again? Rel? Can you text him? Tell him we see his face, but we're not.
I can do that.
Dan's gonna send him a text, see if we can. I think we're having technical problems here somehow.
While we're waiting, I know someone said that earlier this week, people were having some internet issues at the county. Katrina, have you heard of that anybody else has been having internet issues this week?
I have not. This is the first morning that I've experienced anything and I haven't heard anything.
Now we see Rel. And can you hear us, Rel?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. We were trying to get you for a while, and we were having trouble here with our connection, so we thought that.
No, yeah, I've had troubles. as well.
Welcome. How are our facilities doing?
Well, they're always doing great, but yeah, we had a little challenge a week ago. So a week ago, Tuesday night, if you recall, we had thunderstorms in the evening and then early morning Wednesday, and we got a lightning strike at the main courthouse. We're not clear where exactly it struck, but we think it may have been at one of our rooftop units, HVAC, and it affected one of two transformers inside the building. They're on the basement level, right behind county clerk. There are two of them, probably 1950s, 1960s vintage. They're 300 kilowatt each. The one that was affected is a 240 volt transformer that ran most of our rooftop HVAC equipment and the elevator, but it did not affect the other transformer that's a 208 volt transformer that really runs everything else, lights, outlets, everything else. And in any case, so we became aware of it early the next morning because we had basically what seemed like a brownout condition at the main courthouse. And so like half of the building affected with HVAC, no cooling. And that was a hot day, hot and humid day actually, it was last Wednesday. And so we responded very quickly. We brought in both our electrician, but also a contractor that we work with for emergency work, Matco Electric. And we basically scheduled a shutdown that afternoon at 5. We had to shut down 3 buildings, the old jail, the main courthouse, and the old courthouse, because I've mentioned this before, the electric to the complex comes through the old jail and then services all 3 buildings. We had actually planned to do a capital project next year to upgrade all of the switch gear, transformers, electrical panels and such. And now we're going to have to accelerate that plan. And we weren't doing that because of problems. We were doing it because of age of equipment. In any case, so what we did last Wednesday, a week ago, and it was a 17-hour day for myself and several of my staff and the contractors. We did the shutdown at 5 o'clock and basically opened up that transformer to check out what had failed. And we were thinking that it could have been a fuse. And so we brought in an individual from Albany to bring a fuse because the parts are very hard to come by. When we opened it up, we found that the fuse was bad, but we replaced it, but then we checked the actual transformer. There's a fuse on what's called a switch. Typically, you shut off the switch to service the transformer. So the fuse was bad, we replaced that, but then we also opened up the transformer, and all the tests that we did showed that the that the transformer was bad. Basically, installation went to ground and basically the lightning fried the transformer. So then we had already scheduled to bring in a generator. We hooked up the generator. It came in 9:30 last Wednesday night. It took about 2.5 hours to do all the connections. And many of you may have seen the generator in front of the main courthouse. It's actually very quiet. You can barely hear it. In any case, so we did the connections. We connected directly into the panel that was served by this transformer and got the building, at least the other half of the building, up and running with the HVAC and the elevators. And so that's just a temporary measure. So since last Wednesday, we've been working to our plan at this point, which is an interim plan, a temporary plan. I indicated there's 2 transformers. The 240 failed. And so we check all the equipment that was running on the 240, and some of it we could step it down to 208 volts, which are our HVAC units, which are newer, and we can modify a few things, small transformers and units. We did that, and so the plan was to switch everything over the 208 volt transformer. The only issue was the elevator, and so the plan was, and which we did last night, we did another shutdown, put all the loads of the old transformer over to the other existing transformer, and the elevator, we were going to run a smaller generator outside just to serve the elevator at 240 volts. In the meantime, we ordered another motor for the elevator at 208 volts. I guess what I'm saying is that we were able last night by 11 o'clock when we were done, switch all those loads over to the existing 208 volt transformer, powered it up, and we also actually put the elevator. I made an executive decision at 10 last night. Let's try the motor on the 208 volt, and it was fine. I actually rode the elevator 3 times myself. We all felt it would work. The new motor is coming later this afternoon, and if so, we can just change it out. So the building is fully functional at this point, running on the other existing transformer, and that's a temporary plan. The permanent plan is we're going to replace that existing transformer, which is old to begin with. We suspect that it's very likely because of the age that it has the oil, the tubs for the fuses, there's PCBs in it. So that's been sent out for testing. I mean, there's no concerns because nothing, burnt or anything. So we're getting that tested. Regardless, we want to get rid of the transformer, both transformers there. And what we're proposing is an outdoor dry transformer outside the building. And then we would run all new cables underground into this electrical room. And we basically have to redo the whole electrical room, switch gear, panels and such, which is part of initially this capital plan that we were going to do next year. Now, because of this emergency, we're going to have to do a lot of it this year. And so I wanted to make you aware of that. I've got some pictures if you are interested in seeing. Let me just try to bring that up.
I don't know, Lisa, were we sent out any information about this when it happened? I don't recall. First I became aware of it was to see the actual generator sitting in front of the courthouse yesterday.
I included it in last week's weekly updates to legislators.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we'd be glad to look at your pictures.
Okay, yeah, I'm bringing it up. I had it here, but then I think when I transferred over, I lost a couple of them. So I'm going to show you the transformer that failed. Okay. All right. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Are you able to see? You are?
We can see it.
Okay, so yeah, so that's the transformer itself. this is the switch here. These tubs at the top, there's fuses in each of these three. This is oil filled. That's the oil that we suspect has PCBs in it, just because of the age. So basically, when we went in, we knew that we were getting no power readings off of this this transformer. So we shut power to the building in order to open this up, and they found that this first one here, there's a fuse in it called a ribbon fuse, had failed. So it did its job. But then when they opened up the transformer here, these are all like lightning arresters here. And so they tested each of these. And this is an odd type of a transformer. It's not one that's readily available. It's what's called a Y to a delta to a Y type transformer. And so anyway, when they tested this, they did several readings. One of the windings is below, you can't see it, had failed. It had gone to ground. So basically you'd fried the transformer. So the plan, what we did is we disconnected this when we had the power, and then ran, so here, then this is a transformer, or I'm sorry, the generator out front. And it's actually very quiet. I was more concerned near the end that when we fired this up at midnight, we were there till 12:30, that the neighbors across the street wouldn't complain. And we basically couldn't, if I'm at the curb in my vehicle, you can't hear it running with your windows raised. So it's really nice. We ran cables under the stairwell and into that electrical room, into the panel to basically provide power to all of those units that were down, HVAC and elevator. And so that's been running a week. Last night, what we did is we went in and see these two large conduits at the top transformer, all basically any cables were going to here powered by this transformer. We ran it to another transformer that I can hopefully bring the pictures up for that.
So, Arel, with the new project, will we end up with both of the transformers replaced?
Yes. And so I've been meeting this morning again with contractors on site and last night. This project is roughly going to be about $350,000 to basically take away all of the transformers inside the building. And our recommendation is not to put anything back in. If we were to put anything inside the building, it's going to take much longer, and it's going to cost us probably another $100,000 to do that, to put them inside the building. I would highly not recommend that, to do that, but put a transformer outside the building. It would be on the Court Street side, it would be screened, so it would be very difficult to see from the street. And then we would want NYSEG to own it. Because those transformers we own. So it's our responsibility. If this were ever to happen again, then NYSEG would replace the dry transformer that would be pad mounted outside. So that's the plan at this point. But I met with Labella and our contractor day before yesterday on site, and I've asked them to give me two designs, one outdoor, one indoor, as well as estimates. But so far, as I'm saying, we're talking 350 outside to 450 inside transformers, which my concern, aside from the cost, is that to bring it in rigging wise, we're concerned because we've got marble and stairs and such. We would have to bring it in the building somehow. And I'm concerned about damage. We may have to open up doorways just to fit the equipment through. So that's why I would not recommend doing that, because of those reasons. And that space in the basement, I know that the courts are looking at using that space over time. We've done space studies. So I want to minimize the equipment that we have down in that space. But the plan is, if we're moving forward to do this, it's going to be the lead time. The longest lead time right now is for transformers. So we're thinking to have it all done, it's going to be probably 6 months top. Hopefully it'll be 4 months. The transformers are the only piece of equipment which we're hearing that has long lead times of 14, maybe 16 weeks to get the transformer. So for now, what we've done, what we did last night will work. The transformer is a 300 kilowatt transformer, that 208 volt transformer. Loading wise, what we brought over to it, we're about half of what the capacity is of that transformer. So we have no concerns of that. The only concern we have is an old transformer. And should we get more, thunderstorms, it's possible that could be affected. We don't want that. In which case we would have to run that generator for the entire building. It can handle the whole building, in fact. But I wanted to update you on what we're doing. This will be covered for most of it, at least, under our insurance, because it was.
Okay, that's one of the questions I had. Can you stop sharing so we can see everybody?
Sure.
I was going to ask you and Lisa, do you think this will be covered by our insurance reserve, or how we handle that? The other thing that I wanted to ask is, this is an historic building. Where would you put this cabinet for the new transformer that's not going to detract from the historic nature of the building? I would be kind of concerned that we don't all of a sudden have an ugly cabinet outside blocking. As much as it's important to preserve the interior, it's also important to preserve the exterior.
Right. And I'm trying to bring up that picture if I've got it. I thought I had the picture of that. Okay. So let me share briefly again.
Might add, the same sort of thing happened to TC3 quite a few years ago. Now, probably 8 or 10 years ago, and they had to replace all of their transformers.
All right, are you able to see this, what I have on?
Yes, we can.
So it would be right in this corner. It would be behind the face of the building. So Tioga Street is where you see these vehicles here behind the trees.
We're looking at the south or the north side of the building, right?
We're north side, and I'm standing on Court Street, on the sidewalk on Court Street. Here's the flagpole. And this is right where my mouse is basically the corner of Court and Tioga. So it'd be in this space right here. And what we would, all these trees, this tree and this big shrub would remain, which is a screen. So basically if you're standing, and if you're either standing or a vehicle at the corner, you cannot see this area here. We would also basically transplant or put similar shrubs, maybe better screening over in this area. I don't know if you can see my mouse between the tree and this here. So basically you could not see the transformer from the corner or Tioga Street. We would not put it anywhere along the Tioga Street front of the building, but it would be right here, which is close to the power pole on Court Street. It would be underground cabling to the transformer and then underground around the front of the building to get into the electrical room. And the height of the transformer.
Sounds well thought out.
Yeah, the height of the transformer, because we were out there with the engineers and NYSEG, the top of the transformer would be basically about where the top of this grill is, that black grill, over in this area. And so, as I said, with the screening that we would have, you would have to walk back here to see it. You wouldn't be able to see it from that. And we could, I don't know if you can paint these like you see a lot of the electrical boxes around the city, but we can even do that. But yeah, I was very concerned about that as well, Mike, being the historic nature of this building, that I didn't want anything that would be visible, especially along Tioga Street.
Dave?
Yeah, just had a question about I'm trying to make sure I understand this. Our insurance is going to pay to purchase the replacement transformer, and NYSEG is going to take over ownership of that transformer going forward, correct?
Well, there's two options. We can own it like we do the current transformers. I would advise not to do that. But I mean, we would either we buy it and own it and it's still an outdoor, dry transformer, or we would take NYSEG to install it for us. So there'd be a cost to that. Hopefully it's less than us buying it, but once they own it, then they're responsible for it. And so in the future, should anything like this happen, they can come in, remove it and drop another one there. We would not have to get as involved as we have this time because these belong to us. It's not like I could have called NYSEG last week and have them take care of this for us. So yeah, our preference is to have NYSEG own it, in which case we would be paying NYSEG to install it for us. I mean, we'd be under the electrical contractor, or we would buy the transformer ourselves and own it and be responsible basically to maintain it, which I don't want to be in the transformer maintenance business.
Can you please stop sharing again, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, so they would own it. I think that's a good idea. Okay, don't misunderstand. The question I would have would be turnaround time. If this is not a truly standard transformer, would be the turnaround time to repair it should something happen to the new one.
Well, that's the other thing that we're working with the engineer is that the one that failed is not standard.
Right.
When I said delta to a Y corner grounded is rare. And so, I mean, that we were looking, if we wanted that, they'd have to make one. It's not readily available. And so in talking with our electrical contractor, our electrician, and Labella, that's what we want. We want a transformer that is one that would be readily available in the future. And a 208 volt is much more readily available than 240 volt. So I'm planning around all of that. This project, not this portion, but the capital project I referred to, we were also going to be upgrading all the switchgear equipment in the old jail. That's where the primary power comes through. And as part of that project, we were going to isolate the main courthouse. Right now, as I said, we have to kill 3 buildings to do the work on the main courthouse. And then we had to close those switches that had the oil-filled tabs on top in order to then isolate main courthouse and turn everything back on. Well, what I want is to make this building independent, its own independent service, rather than always tethered to the old jail like we are now.
One other question, since you mentioned 208 volts, that seems to me, is that a 3-phase power system?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And
Thank you. I was wondering, do we, at what point would we need to do something to authorize, or I don't know if we need to vote on it to authorize this to be, the new transformer to be owned by NYSEG?
Well, typically that's not something that, I mean, I can bring it to committee, but typically not something that we would bring to legislature to vote on. I think we would look at, I mean, staff-wise, we would look at the advantages and disadvantages of either option. That's why we haven't, that's the one that we think is probably going to be the most cost-effective, and as far as maintenance and responsibility is probably the better way to go. But we have not made that final decision. I mean, I would report to this committee to let you know as we get close to that point, the decision, based on the design, both the interior transformers, which I highly recommend against, the outdoor, and then who owns it. Just so you know, we have outdoor transformers at the library. It's on the employee entrance side, much larger than this one here that NYSEG owns. We also have one at the health department that NYSEG owns. The majority of our transformers that are outdoor are owned by NYSEG, not by the county.
Okay, thanks. I just didn't want to slow you down if there was anything that we needed to do to help make that happen. So thank you. Thank you for all this, the update and all the work you and others have done through this crisis.
Yeah, I appreciate that. As I said, most of the people that I've talked in both buildings, both the old jail and main courthouse, didn't even know that we had a generator running in front of the Tioga, which was great. That was what I was most concerned about, is that people would be complaining, judges especially inside the building, but it is a quiet one, which is just briefly, this may brought to light that we need to be better prepared to respond to these types of events. And because I think they're going to happen more often, that the city tends to be affected a lot with power outages as a result of lightning and thunderstorms. And so I've already talked to Lisa as part of kind of my capital discussion about really talking about generators. So we are very interested in a generator like the one that I showed you a picture of, which can handle any building in 480, 240, 208. It's a switchable, and then we could also on the buildings sides put the gear inside. So instead of having to run cords in the building through windows, doorways, you just go to the exterior and you just plug it in. Very simple ways, like your car chargers, you just kind of plug it in. So you plug it into the wall or the face of buildings, because we don't have an emergency power for main courthouse. We don't have it for the old jail. We don't have it for the old courthouse. We don't have it for mental health, and we don't have it for human services buildings. So a lot of our key downtown buildings have no generator because a lot of it's because of space. And whereas everything uptown, health department, emergency response, airport, public safety, we have generators. So it's not an issue. Downtown, the only one that has one is ITS, and it's only for our building C, but it's only for ITS operations, the server basically. So that's a key thing to be.
Dave, is your hand still up?
Yeah, it's still up, Mike, but shouldn't be.
Oh, okay. So I assume like the generator rental would also be an insurance charge here?
Yes, so basically all the work that has been done to date, as well as the numbers, very general, the kind of order of magnitude numbers, would be part of this emergency repair that would fall under our insurance covered. Now, we've alerted county admin as well as Jackie Kipla, that's back now temporarily as a risk manager, to make her aware of those things.
Well, I'd like you to know how truly appreciative we are of the extra work and the extra activity that you had to do to solve this problem, and also the work your workers and employees and everybody else that was involved. And to be able to have a facilities department that can respond to a crisis like this, I think says a lot for our county and for your department. So I just want to express thank you again.
I appreciate that. Bob Dyson, which is our HVAC tech, last Wednesday we were there 17 hours, and then Josh Miner, which is our electrician, he was on vacation when this happened, and he came in that afternoon prior to the shutdown and stayed with us, till 12:30, and then all three of us came in yesterday, worked the full shift and left at 11. I enjoy this. This is exciting. Gets me out of my office, and so my concern was I'm there to support staff, make sure that we had to make a lot of decisions very quickly last night, and so I wanted to be there to make those decisions, and in the end wanted to walk away to make sure that the building was functional for operations the next morning. It went well, so I appreciate that. Getting as old as I am, the lack of sleep is one thing that takes a long time to catch up with, but otherwise I enjoy the work that I do, and this is great. This is kind of exciting in a way. So,
Dan has a question.
Yeah, a few. So first of all, I've walked by the emergency transformer a few times this past week, and I concur. It's extremely quiet. I couldn't even tell it was on really. And I also immediately noticed its placement. It's near the magnolia trees, and caused me some concern. I understand it was an emergency, no problems. But I wanted to talk about the next transformer that you're talking about. It's gonna be outdoors now. I really, really, really want to make sure that this project does not impact that magnolia tree that's gonna be near, because those things are magnificent. And if one of them were to be damaged, or killed as part of the project, that would really be like a big deal. It would really change the whole look of the building for decades.
I
So,
agree.
go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, and that's why I wanted to be on the Zoom call right at 9, but the contractor that was going to do the excavation was there. So I was on site with the electrical contractor, the excavator, and our electrician. And that's what I said. I said, do not, if you've got a hand dig to trench by the trees so we're not hitting roots, that's the kind of the first priority. All the big shrubs and the magnolia. I said, so, because initially they were going to basically get an excavator, and they said, no, you're going to have to do hand digging for 20, 30 feet. And then as you get closer to the front steps, then I said, I'm not concerned. So yes, so they're well aware of that. And so I said, if that goes, you're going to be buying a big tree for us. So I definitely agree.
Should, for example, the city forester be present when that happens?
No, well, those are not within their jurisdiction. Anything.
Well, I get their advice though.
Yeah, can I keep going?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Dan.
Yeah, that was actually my next thing. I would request that you do, and I mean, I could do this, whatever. I request that you do contact the city forester. Agreed, it is not their jurisdiction, but they're a very helpful department, and just for some advice, because this is what they do all the time, every day, construction and trees. That's what they deal with. So, Aurel, you don't mind, do you?
No.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. And similarly, as this new outdoor transformer gets installed, if we could make sure that tree has the best protection it can, and I don't mean that in a theoretical way. Like on some construction sites, they just put up a little chain link fence, and if a machine hits that fence, it's as if the fence isn't there. And there's standards. The city has very specific standards about what's an acceptable tree cage during construction.
Good, yeah,
And that,
good comments. I like that. Thank you.
thank you. And then I also just a thought. I'm wondering if when this new transformer goes in and whatever the outside of it looks like, I'm wondering if we would consider putting a brick wall around it. It doesn't have to be a structural brick wall, but something that looks like the courthouse, so that when you see it from the outside, it's not a different material that we're looking at. So just so I've seen some people with like their garbage dumpsters, for instance, they'll put up a screening, and the best ones look like the building, so that it just kind of it's not really jarring. So I don't know if that's even possible, but it's just a thought I had. And then finally, if you could keep us informed about what the footprint of this new transformer is going to look like before everything's finalized, because I know that it's one thing to say, oh, we want it to look, to fit in with the building, but then there's certain, technical demands that make it so it's not. So those magnolia trees are really like an institution, that they've been here for, I don't know.
I agree. I love them. Yeah, I love them. And so yeah, you don't have to worry about me as far as that's concerned. But yes, when we met with the engineer, myself on Tuesday, I said, I want a kind of not a rendering, but a picture. And then you Photoshop the transformer on the picture, a plan from above. So we see exactly where the transformer will be, the clearances that we need away from the building and all of that. So yes, and then I would present that to you a little more formal than I did today, a little PowerPoint showing all that to you. So no, that was my intent all along.
Thank you, Aurel, much appreciated.
So I'm still seeing hands from Ann and Dave. Ann?
Thanks. This could wait till we're completely done with this discussion, but I just wanted to say I had another question I wanted to ask about just overall building security, which is why I was wanting to know if Lisa was here. Overall buildings security.
Well, let's come back. Let me check with Dave. Dave, is there a question about this electrical project?
Yeah, Mike, it's more about in the future providing backup generation services for the downtown campus. I was wondering if Aurel would consider finding, I'm not sure there's one possible, but a generator big enough to do all the buildings and have one location where we can get it out of the way, but and not interfere with the older buildings, and have it service the downtown campus in its entirety.
I know we did a study several years ago, maybe 15 years ago, where we looked at that, and the challenge is, space, where to put that. And we looked at the downtown, it'd have to be outdoors. I didn't know if you knew, but the old jail used to have a Caterpillar generator inside many years ago. And then when they did that renovation in the early 90s, it was removed. And that's actually boilers are, the new boilers are in that space. So we'd have to do it outdoor. It would take up, parking, obviously. So as I said, the plan was to look at a portable generator like the one that I showed you that would be designed to meet the needs of any of our buildings. And the one that we had out there was actually larger, could do any of the buildings that we have in the county. But we would have it set up so that you could just pull it right in and plug it and run the building quickly. I mean, what we did the other day, it took 3 hours once the generator arrived to do all that. You had to open up panels and do a lot of cabling into the building. That takes a long time. Whereas this other plan would be just pull up to the building and connect, and you'd be good to go. But I mean, as I said, we've looked at that before. We can look at that again. The challenge is always of our downtown locations is where to put a generator. The same human services building, there's just no room in the back to do that. We already have a transformer in the back of the human services building, dumpsters, all of that takes up space. So, but I'm willing to look at that again if we're talking about, on-site generators.
I'm thinking from standpoint of not a breakdown, but of an outright power outage in the city where we would need to light up all the buildings, not just one.
Right.
That's where I'm looking at. Probably the individual buildings would be the more common type of problem, but I like the idea of being able to bring something in and plug it in for that purpose.
Right.
But what do we do if the whole thing goes down? Maybe we just shut down. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We back when we did that study, we asked which were the mission critical buildings, and those are the ones where we have permanent generators up on the hill. The buildings that didn't, like we talked about HSB and mental health, and we had a plan that you would move essential staff to the lower floors, and that the generator would basically operate those 2 floors, same at mental health, because not everybody not all the departments would be considered essential, at least all the staff. But that's worth talking again in the future as we kind of dust off that plan and talk about how we may want to proceed. There is funding for this. I've been talking to planning, BRIC funding through FEMA for pre-disaster mitigation and things. So there's funding available, and I think this is a good time to really seriously consider doing something like this county-wide.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And thanks very much for all that you've done to get things up and running. That's a fantastic service.
Thank you.
Anything else on that electrical issue before I go to Ann? And then after Ann, I want to bring up something for a couple of minutes. Go ahead, Ann.
Thank you. I'll just wind up with one just quick comment that I do like the idea of trying to figure out how to best power our buildings. As Dave said, I mean, you could have a widespread power outage, and would we have to choose? Oh, which building? If we have one generator, which building, would we choose? I mean, we have mental health, DSS, county administration, and sometimes when this happens, it could just be that power's out, but it could be because of some disaster. So I like that we're thinking, more into the future like that. So what I want to bring up, and I don't know if Lisa has time to tune back in, but I think it was brought up or mentioned about building security as we open back up to the community now. And I don't know if this is what Lisa meant, but overall, I've just been thinking, and especially now that our buildings are closed, like just rethinking about how we do operations. Just looking at, do we have enough cameras? Do we have enough security? Do we, we've set up some things, at some buildings now where you press a button and there's an intercom and a camera to gain access into the building. So I don't know if this is, either a time now or something to plan for the coming year to look at more security for our buildings.
It's a great question, Anne, and I think, each building has its own particular needs and clientele and own challenges or eases in terms of security. I know prior to the pandemic here in the old jail, we would often on the third floor have visitors come up and it would be a bit of a surprise. They'd be in the wrong place. And it was, there were some security issues there. And so I think that in this office and it's similar, I think at Boswick Road, there's an intercom system which will direct the public to, and a camera, which will direct the public to which floor they want to go to, and people can be let in by the various departments there. And there's also, we've instituted a drop box for finance, which has been well received by the public. And saves them a trip. So I know, just speaking from this building, we intend to continue that. I think in other buildings, it has been, department by department. Mental health revamped their entire reception area so that they wouldn't have clientele going to the various floors unannounced. And DSS has revamped their security, at least they did with COVID. While we are asking the departments to submit and review their operations plans going forward, we want to be reviewing that, but also to the point that was raised at the legislature meeting, we want to ensure that we are open to the public in the hours, that there are hours available to the public as there were, and that there is an ease of access to the public that we serve. So it's a balance between providing the security that's necessary for staff and the public, as well as providing public access. So we're reviewing all of that as we are reviewing the operations plans. And we're trying to accelerate the review of the operations plans in light of the easing of restrictions in New York.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa and Arel, for that. The other thing I wanted to mention just very briefly is another Ann issue. That was a goal that we adopted, was to look at how we can reduce plastic bottle usage in the county, having some fountains or other water available for filling bottles. And Ann, you're more than welcome to jump in and talk more about this, but as we begin to look at that, what would be in my mind is what we have available in buildings now that would do this, and where we would need to make plumbing modifications. Is that sort of the issue, Ann?
Right. Buttercup wanted to say hi for today's meeting, but The Amanda Champion said she'd be glad to join us and give us an update on what the, trying to think of the name of this subcommittee, and the
PPP, environmentally
environmental.
procurement.
Yeah, so to look at, because that group is already looking at getting us more environmentally friendly products. So this was on their radar, and reducing the plastics. So I guess we thought of it at the same time, or when I thought of it, they were already working on it. So maybe she could come next month. Like I said, Amanda Champion would be willing to come and tell us the update on that.
Does Arel have a regular report next month for us? Is that what, at that time? I just wondered if Arel would be here at that point.
I mean, I can be here next month.
All right. Well, let's plan on having a chat about that at the committee. We can invite Amanda for certain.
Thanks, Mike, for remembering that.
And I actually, a couple of months ago, I did share the committee goals and with staff, and I highlighted that one about looking into increasing the number of water fountains, county buildings to help reduce use of single-use plastic. So we're aware of that, but formally, I don't think we've been asked to do anything in relation to that. But yeah, we can do that, do an inventory of the buildings, what we have, because each department does things a little differently. Many have the little coolers, the bottled spring water coolers that they use. We have, highway has one here, but many of our buildings do that. But it looks like you're talking about actual water fountains replacing what we have or supplementing what.
I'm not 100% sure what we're talking about, so I'm going to leave that to. I think Ann and Amanda have been a small committee, which I think is great to try to come forward with some thoughts. But it does seem to me we would need an inventory of what we have at some point.
Okay.
Okay, and one comment I just thought of is your idea of your portable generator is like John's Bailey Bridge. We put the bridge, we have a spare bridge where we put it when we need it. And so I just see that analogy there. All right, what else for the committee? Oh, we have minutes today, don't we? Someone want to move the minutes of May 20th? Dan? Ann? Any discussion on the minutes? Let's vote. Dave?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Anything else for the committee this morning?
Yes.
John, or are you just waiting? Oh, go ahead, John.
I got a hand too, a little chat thing. I just wanted to let you know that I did contact Jeff, and what we had thought is correct, that DOT withheld 20% of our funding last year. We are getting back 15%, not 15% of the 20.
Okay, so that just needs a little wording adjustment.
Yes.
Great.
Is that something that I need to do and send back down, or or can that be made?
Can we let, what do you think, Katrina?
We can send it to the floor as amended.
Okay,
I've got some suggested wording. I'll send it to you. And if it works for highway department and works for everybody else, we can use that. Or if you want to generate your own, that's fine too.
Okay.
Either way.
We'll take a look at it. I'll send it downtown.
thanks for checking on that, John.
You're welcome.
Dan, good job weaving in the word generate again into the conversation.
Anything else?
I was trying to wait until all the electrical stuff was over.
Well, we're keeping our fingers crossed that it's over.
Right.
Does that count as overage?
Don't get me amped up.
All right.
All right, shall we adjourn?
Please.
Thank you all for being here. We're adjourned.